And Peter, I'm going to hand it over to you for this next one.
Thank you, Sarah. Um, so the video presentation that I'm about to share is pretty self-contained, so it doesn't need too much introduction. I will be on the question and answer. If you have any questions, my two comrades who did it with me are not available today, but if you have questions specifically for them, I can relay them to you and get back to you. Buffalo County is in the wild and mysterious northern Driftless. You can see from the map here, it is just south and a titch west of Eau Claire. And we have a rich history of fishing and habitat restoration in the county. And so that's what this video is about. And Sarah, if you can just confirm when oh yes, I got to make sure that I'm going to stop screen sharing for a moment because when I shared, I know I did not do this. So, okay. Sarah, if you can just make sure that the audio is coming through when I start this thing up, that'd be great.
I sure will.
Okay. Well, hello. This is a TU Dare special on trout fishing and stream habitat restoration in Buffalo County. I am your host, Peter Jonas, and with me today we have Todd Mau, and Todd is the retired conservation officer? District conservationist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and he was located in Alma. And then we have Tim Salway here, and Tim is the resident sage of the Wamedy Rod and Gun Club. He is a farmer and a builder. He has a grass-fed beef operation in beautiful Jaeger Valley, beautiful pastures there on the stream, and I'd like to welcome you both today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Tim, were you born in Jaeger Valley or?
That is correct.
Okay, so you are from there. We've established that.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about what trout fishing was like when you were a boy.
Trout fishing when I was a boy. Born in 1961, so by the late 60s I was a fortunate kid. I had a family tradition of very interested trout fisher people. From great grandparents on down to my grandparents, my uncle, and far off cousins that we did claim. A lot of outings for the family. It was something that we really enjoyed. Grew up with it, and it's followed me throughout my life. And the fishing at that time was, with today's reviewing, going back and looking to that era, very few trout, not a lot of habitat, everything was put and take, no natural reproduction. So to go back to that era and reflect on how things were then and how they have land practices, and everything has improved to the point where we have a wonderful fishery that everyone can enjoy.
So specifically, how were brook trout doing in those days?
Back in those days, it was, like I stated, just brown trout, put and take. Local rod and gun clubs, Fountain City Club had a rearing, they had a rearing facility, the Wamedy Club. They had rearing facilities, so it was domestic browns that were raised in these stock or rearing ponds and released into area streams, and not a large number. So due to the fact that there just wasn't the habitat and conditions weren't conducive to holding a steady, good population of fish, so it was pretty sparse
Yeah.
as far as fish numbers.
Yeah. You said to me that the only brook trout that you encountered when you were young were in these ponds that dairy farmers kept their milk jugs in.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell the folks about that.
Buffalo Trumbull County, we have a lot of spring heads.
Yep.
And so part of the problem for that's point pollution, was as the dairy industry advanced and became more of the economic engine of the county, or the counties. Most barns and farmyards, if they possibly could do it, they were building as close as they could to the spring heads to cool the milk, water the cattle and the horses. So the spring house was where dairy farmers kept their milk in cream cans till it could be transported to the local processing plant. So of course they did not want contaminated water in their spring house, because they also a lot of times had rams that they pumped water up into their homes to use instead of digging a well. And in the end, when the brook trout were being basically wiped out of the area due to post-World War II, when chemicals came onto the scene, the cropland was plowed, it was sprayed, massive floods. A lot of soil erosion, gullies were forming, and basically wiped out all the trout. And getting back to the spring house, that was the last stronghold where some trout would live in among the cream cans, where the springs boiled out of the water. And then as electricity came along, they didn't need spring houses anymore, so they were kind of left.
And the bulk tanks,
Yep, bulk tanks came along, and
no more canned milk, and
that was the end of the last brook trout that hung on in the spring.
yeah. One comment about Tim's comment is the spring heads. You find numerous ones all over the county where the springs are right there, and they're not just a little spring you put your sippy cup in. I mean, they were big springs coming out of the ground where they could hold trout. Actually, maybe a little bit of manipulation, make a trout pond out of them. Or like Tim said, when they had canned milk, run them through there, and the trout could surely survive there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they wanted enough depth in their
Yep,
spring house,
yep,
Yeah.
so that the cans were submerged. Well, it was just like a mini trout pond,
yep.
and then when those days were over and the bulk tank came, the water was just left to, release.
Yeah.
No more fish in those areas.
Yeah,
And that was it for the whole watershed.
right.
Yeah. So Todd, when did you arrive in Buffalo County, and what were fishing and stream conditions like in those days?
I started in Buffalo in August of 1988, the year of the drought. Probably not a good year to measure things
Yeah.
by. Not being an active trout fisherman, I didn't pay attention to that a whole lot until I got involved in these projects by way of the rod and gun clubs, the conservation clubs. But I remember hearing conversations from local people, from the conservation warden, about the excitement of opening day of trout season, and people were camping and going trout fishing and comparing notes on where they were going fishing, what they were catching, and how big a fish. So I remember that in the late 80s, early 90s, the excitement about that. And then that waned and basically went away, and no one really talked about it until later in the late 2000s when we started these projects, and that really picked up steam with the clubs and the landowners and farmers that did these projects. And now we're back to the point, like Tim said, our population, I think our fish size, from some of the DNR surveys and I know you have to be careful of listening to fishermen's stories, but a lot of people catch them.
They're all solid as a rock. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's changed a lot, and and I have people since I've been involved with Trout Unlimited and doing these projects, you don't realize the impact this has outside of this. Outside of our local area where people are willing to travel to have fun. Vernon County, I think, is a very good example of that. And they've proven the economic impact, and it's probably not been like that here in Buffalo, but people come here to fish. They will travel a full day to come to Buffalo County to fish, and so it's been exciting to see it kind of subside, and now the excitement's back again. And again, I don't know, I was not an active fisherman through the 90s. I started this along with my participation in these projects, and, continue to do that now with the grandkids.
Yeah.
And, I think one thing that we've tried to promote is we did have a Boy Scout in the Eagle Scout program. He put the sites of the public access points on the UW Extension's website, and so it's open to everybody. I mean, you don't have to call someone, well, where can I go fishing? Because it's out there now. And then, I forget the author of the book of the trout streams in Wisconsin.
Right.
And most of them are in there now in the updated version. So,
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you don't even have to be from here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, it's a lot of the money that's coming to these restoration programs is federal money also. So, to me, it's fair game.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody deserves to,
Yep,
we have
participate in-
perpetual. As far as I know, they're all perpetual easements.
We had one 25-year easement, and that's the minimum that anybody will participate in. Otherwise, everything's been perpetual. And farmers have been extremely, extremely happy to participate and do that. And one of our goals, I think, between agencies and the clubs was that there would be no bill for the farmer in the end. I mean, everything, and that included even the legal fees. I mean, all the legal fees up to this date that I'm aware of have been, were donated by the attorney's office, some in-kind payments from the farmers to do some things, but otherwise between Trout Unlimited, Fish and Wildlife Service, Wisconsin DNR, Land Conservation Department, and NRCS through their cost share programs, we've been able to cover 100% of the cost of these projects. So
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Yeah. I want to come back to brook trout a bit, because I think the history of what the Wamandee Rod and Gun Club and other organizations did to restore brook trout to the county is really notable. So, Tim, I'm wondering if you'd just start us out on the story of how brook trout were reintroduced into Buffalo County.
Yes. We all knew that there was only one native trout historically in the Midwest, and that was the brook trout. And kind of listening to the stories from old timers of back when in the 1920s, the brook trout populations were still strong. Even with the agriculture and flooding and pasturing, there still was a good populations. And so to think that could have been at that time, and then streams channelization in the 40s and 50s was very detrimental. Of course, took out a lot of habitat, created incisioning in our streams, and just trying to take an approach of getting some trout established. So first you have to get some fish there. Before my time, the Wamby Rod and Gun Club, in the mid to late 70s, were able to purchase, with club funds, some brook trout. They did not put a lot out, you know, it's 50 trout in one little creek and 50 in another creek, and they did stay there. They did not really start out strong as far as successful reproduction. It was more of a put and take, but it was the start of trying to get these fish reestablished in their native habitat of where they were for thousands of years. And advancing into about the early 80s, we tried to do some brush bundling. We did some brush bundling on the Wamby Creek, which ironically, 2010 was restored, complete restoration. And in the meantime, we had purchased brook trout, and this was in the early 80s, so we kept adding to the pool. I guess you could say that. And we put up some signs with the landowner's permission, brook trout spawning area. So at that time then we switched to putting all mature brook trout in after the season.
Okay, in the
So,
fall.
in the
Yeah,
fall.
yeah.
So if they stuck around for a month or 6 weeks, they were ready to go. And they did not have to go very far because we put them all in spring heads, spring ponds, wherever we thought they'd have a good chance to get started. And it just, the population just started, natural reproduction started occurring, and it has not stopped since then.
Okay.
And has gradually expanded to every little feeder stream that can hold a fingerling brook trout.
So were those trout able to expand their range? There must have been, you mentioned about the brush bundles and that, but were there also changes in terms of agricultural practices and how the water quality in streams was progressing in that area, and what did that look like?
Oh, definitely. Pasturing streams and hillsides. Back in the day, most farms pastured their woodlots, they pastured the streams. So as the dairy industry, what would you say?
Changed.
Advanced and changed.
Progressed, yeah.
Yeah. It was more of bringing the forage into the cattle instead of sending them out into the hillsides and stream areas to forage. So things gradually started to heal. Soil erosion was on the mend. A lot of contour strips, dams.
Hay and rotation.
Yeah, hay rotations. Land use practices kept continuing to be, what would you call it? More, people became more aware.
Right, aware and conscious of conservation efforts and
Yeah.
maintaining the soil, you know, with the dark topsoils that we have here and keeping that in place instead of letting it get away from us down the river, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of effort in that.
Yeah.
A lot of money spent on waterways. The large incisioning ditches were closed and waterways.
And I think we found taking, you know, cattle out of the woods, hopefully decreased our runoff, our velocities, you know, especially where, you know, farmers, the woods was a place to put the cows. I mean, they didn't get a chance to really enjoy the woods as far as hunting and that, but it was a place for the cows to go. So sometimes it probably got overused. You same with some of our pastures along the streams, but somewhere in between, there's a sweet spot where managed grazing in a stream corridor, managed grazing in a woodland setting provide some positive habitats. So yeah, so it's I think things changed. Like Tim said, everybody brought the cattle home. We left those places all more idle time. Maybe now we created the next problem of the manure that's produced at home instead of naturally spread. We maybe traded one resource problem for a different one. But, from managing the stream corridor, I think it was all positive at that time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which brings me to the Wamedy Watershed Project, because that was really, as I understand it, one of the first watershed projects in the state. And how did that come together, and what were the goals of that project?
Well, that project, the preliminaries on that, I believe, started in about 1984. And that was statewide.
Right, through the Wisconsin Fund.
It was a Wisconsin fund, but I don't remember the detail.
Yeah, and I don't know how they ranked those streams, but counties had to put together, if they wanted to participate in a project, okay, and what do you want to do with this project? And I think that was all done prior to me getting here in Buffalo, but the construction was going on, it was the water quality from probably manure runoff at that time, sediment in the stream, some habitat work, and most of the DNR studies that I've seen and heard about over the years, the number one issue in streams in western Wisconsin is sediment. In the springtime, we have that short time period where manure runoff is an issue, but sediment in the streams is overall the number one issue. And it affects your oxygen levels and survival of fish, warming of waters, and related to the brook trout again. So I think that's where a lot of that, what the Wamedy Creek watershed came from, and provided some opportunities for people to install some habitat. Riprap, lunkers were the big habitat project at that time. And riprap, and stop the erosion on stream banks, because anytime you have stream bank erosion, it's 100% deposition into the stream. So
Yeah.
And there was a big push once the watershed was approved
right,
to do barnyard runoff
Right.
systems, which I think helped a lot.
oh yeah, instead of just having this
All that nitrogen and
open channel of manure going to the streams, they had some type of filtration system. There was a variety of things they could choose from, but it provided a place for the cattle to be during those springtime when the ground is soft. You don't want them out in places, but they could be on the yard. We had a way to manage the manure runoff, and it was a great opportunity for farmers to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And those were through that priority watershed. I believe it was up to 80% cost shared on some.
On some of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
65 up to
Yeah.
80, and certain situations were 80, but most of them were 65 to 70. But
Yeah.
there were some opportunities there for farmers to take advantage of that.
And those opportunities were economically unfeasible for a smaller,
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
just too cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what it was also was that Buffalo County, or the Wamedy watershed, became the number one, or the first, was that almost every stream was classified as impaired. And let's see, it was going in 1985, I believe. That was the first year of signups and work being done.
Probably. Yep.
And it ran all the way through to 2001. I would say that inspired probably local rod and gun clubs, or conservation-minded people to improve upon that with actual site-specific stream restoration.
Right, and it built up to that, and then, that was the time when, agriculture went through a massive change, and we lost the small herds, and we went to the 100, 200 cow herds, and then we went to the large dairies that we have today. So there was a extremely fast moving change in agriculture at the time. Unfortunately, the Wamati helped some of that prior to that change. So.
And now we turn to, Todd, when you became the conservationist, it seemed like habitat work really advanced during your career.
I was talking to Tim beforehand that I think it was about 2007, 2008 when the Elmo Rod and Gun Club came to our office and asked, we want to do a trout project. And, where are we going to do this, and what are our possibilities? And we were getting into Wildlife Habitat Incentive Program. The EQIP was coming on board for, again, wildlife habitat, conservation practices. So we did pursue a project up on the Johnson Farm in Trout Creek with EQIP funds and the help of the Elmo Conservation Club, Elmo Rod and Gun Club. That worked out very successfully. I mean, we still have trout in the stream. We've had some storm damage. And then, that led to Wamati asking, well, what about some farmers down here? And then it was Fountain City up in Eagle Valley. And it just went on and on and on. And, for the next 2 or 3 years and created a lot of excitement, and people were coming in the office. I want to get one of those trout projects like so-and-so's got. Because they were getting some rock, they were getting some habitat, people were having good luck fishing. And again, it kind of goes back to if the farmer would donate the easement, we would find some funds, and kind of leads back to another story, a meeting I went to with Duke Welter from TU, and had talked about his experiences, and this was a big meeting in western Wisconsin, and I said, we have these interests. We got this club coming to us, we got some farmers' interests. How do we line up all this money? And he said, if you get the easement, the money will come. And I think, I remember him saying that, and since that time, it's been true. Again, it's come from many, many different avenues, but you need to get the easement in place first. That's number one. And then, projects fall into place. And landowners, farmers are absolutely the key, and the local clubs are the second major key, because they're the access to getting out in the community and letting people know what's going on, and it just took care of itself. It made our job a lot easier as federal agencies, because you didn't have to go out and sell conservation. It did itself.
I love that. Love that. As I've been thinking about this, I've been thinking about my own evolution as a angler. And, you start out trout fishing, you're just like laser focused on the stream, and you just want to catch a dang trout, And then you start looking at the banks, and you start looking at the riparian corridor. You're looking up at the landscape, and pretty soon you're thinking about, the watershed and larger issues that affect land and water, and that's coming at it from an angler's perspective. I think of the two of you, and you have a much richer understanding from farming and resource management. But I guess I'm also wondering, how has your perspective enlarged or evolved over the years through stream restoration projects, and I guess what have you seen, or what are you seeing that is sort of a way of looking at the horizon for you?
It has been, the easements have been so well received with our landowners, our local landowners. I don't see that waning at all. It's wonderful to have a waiting list, basically.
Right. And we've had a lead.
Which we have right now.
Right.
Yeah.
A long waiting list. And that's not, Peter, you don't have to go out and knock on doors. I don't have
Non-Buffalo County. No.
You'll have people saying, we want to get this done. I just heard it the other day. Stop by a bridge. Landowner was looking over his bridge because there was a beaver dam there, Danusa Valley.
Okay, yeah.
And going, yeah, I want to get this signed up here and get this going. And then my neighbor upstream was thinking about it also, the headwaters. You know. So it does, as long as the funding is there, I think, people are more and more want to be responsible, take care of their land. And one thing that we do have in Buffalo and Trumbull County is we have these, the wide open valleys with wonderful productive soil. Wammy Valley has been referred to as the Garden Valley. And that was the name of the co-op.
Garden Valley Co-op, yep.
Right.
Yep.
So as good of soil as you can find.
Right.
And these farmers don't want that soil heading down into the Mississippi River. And another thing that the stream restoration does is it stabilizes their field edges also. So they don't have to worry about the undermining and losing, it used to be, you could see 6-8 corn rows.
Right. At least they know they're going to be able to harvest what they plant, where a lot of times those rows ended where it washed out, like Tim said, or undermined. And, but I think another thing about your comment about looking at the watersheds and Tim talking about the neighbors talking, these projects really create a lot of conversation in the communities about conservation, about certain projects, about what's going on the farm and what they're doing, and just in general conservation conversations. And I think it was all good from non-farmers, farmers, landowners, community members, fisher people. Just good conversation about conservation. So I think, it's been a win-win everywhere around. Yep. And I think Trout Day. That's been good. This will be 12 or 13 years now?
Yeah, 2010.
Yep, I think was the first one in Eagle Valley there, and we started that just to promote the projects, get the kids there, and from what I've seen, some of the results, it's worked. I mean, kids catch on. They'll fish for many, many years to come, and if the kids are there, the parents will be there. They have to get there, so that's been fun to watch.
Yeah,
So-
big thanks to the DNR crew out of Black River.
Oh yeah,
Steadfast
Yeah.
every year since 2010.
right.
Yeah.
To just have to see the excitement in the kids, to have the chance to touch a fish.
Yeah.
So they shock the streams and then bring the fish out for the kids, and that's what the kids are there for. They can talk about habitat, but they're bored with that. They want to see fish.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Yeah.
So far, none have ever fallen in and gotten away.
Nope. Went home with the same number we started with.
They hang right on.
But the possibility of them falling in and being electrocuted is what makes the event what it is.
Right.
I mean, that's why people go.
Well,
You
live on the edge a little bit. But. And I remember at Trout Creek too, when we had it there, when kids fished for 2 hours in the morning, came back and we have lunch. The club's Wamedy is always our chef and does a wonderful job on the hot dogs and brats, and had lunch. And Grandpa, there's no fish in this creek. There's nothing anywhere. We fish down there. And then the crew goes in with their electrofishing, and it's like, well, that fish wasn't there when I was there.
Look at all the fish.
Yeah, it is humbling. That is for certain. No doubt about that.
Yeah. So,
Pretty exciting to see those type of fish numbers.
Yeah.
And that really is tells the story as far as that part of the restoration. The fish are there.
yep.
Well, Tim and Todd, I want to thank both of you for
Thank you.
just a great conversation. I also want to thank Nancy Bergman, our camera person, who has done a wonderful job. Also, Kevin Bargender and all of the staff at WTCO, the Trempealeau County Public Access television station. Without their technical support, this program would not have happened. And so this is Peter Jonas signing off. And until next time, when in doubt, think like a watershed.
Peter, thank you so much for that. I don't know if folks know, but Peter has been taking on some of these types of projects for us, communications projects, and teaching himself how to do video editing and taking his long history of ministry skills and adapting them into interviewing and working with these folks. And so I can't thank you enough, Peter, for the effort that you put into creating a product like that. It's really incredible.
Well, I will say this, my position with TU Dare, I am learning stuff every single day. And now I can add a little bit of video editing to what I'm doing. So I'm excited about that.